If you spend $2,600 or $3,300, you get to shoot a really nice buck like this with a drop tine and everything, man. All kinds of junk on here. This is like part mule deer or something, right? Let's say we don't spend that much money, but we buy the Stealth 450. Really nice crossbow. We just did a video on that one. We got a really nice buck there. A little bit out of focus, but still a really nice buck. That's pretty cool. But here, to shoot a buck that nice, you only have to spend like $2,100 or $2,800. So we brought the price down because the bucks are a little bit smaller, see? And then when we go over here to today's video, boom, 2023 Viper 430. That is a pretty sweet looking crossbow too. We've got another smaller buck that doesn't have the giant neck like the last buck and all that stuff. But we only had to spend $1,700, $1,800 for this buck. And we don't even get the option of adding the Burris Oracle X on it. Isn't it funny how they market these crossbows to you along with big bucks? I want to be clear. I'd be happy to shoot any one of these bucks. I would shoot any of them and brag about it for the rest of my life. I am not a deer snob, that's for sure. But I do like nice big bucks, and this crossbow, like pretty much any crossbow, if you use it right, you learn how to use it, it is going to do the job. It's going to let you shoot big bucks. It's going to let you shoot lots of does. It's going to let you have great time out there in the woods hunting whatever animals it is you choose to hunt. I talked about it before. They're raising the bar as a company, and I don't want this to turn into an elitist channel where we're only talking about big bucks, where we're only talking about super fast, ultra modern crossbows. Please don't get that impression about Death by Bunjie. That is not the case. In my 13 years of hunting with a crossbow now, 13 seasons with the OB even, an older, slower crossbow like that, killed a bunch of deer with it. Killed 4 deer with that crossbow this year. Can you believe that? I like that old, slow crossbow so much that I went and put that expensive scope on it, right? Bought a second expensive scope to put on it just because I want that crossbow to continue to be relevant as I'm hunting in the modern era. I also hunt with a slick black Cadillac, Bunjie III, more of a modern speed. Got the fancy scope on there too. Shot a deer at 52 yards. Pretty proud of that. On public land, no less. Figured out the deer, got in there and did it. That's a pretty expensive crossbow. With modern crossbows, you got all kinds of options. TenPoint is just the first company this year to send me a whole bunch of promotional emails about their new releases, right, for 2023. We're not even into the new year yet. We're just getting started. This is where I'm going with this. TenPoint just getting started showing us their new catalog for the upcoming season, for the upcoming year, but they're raising the bar. They're setting the standard for these other companies, saying, hey, look what we can do, right? That is what a free market is all about. Think about how great this is. By showing off all this stuff early on, the other companies got to do a pretty good job. They got to step it up a little bit. This kind of technology, these improvements in crossbow design that we've been talking about in this series of videos will trickle down. It will come to the rest of us eventually. This one, forward draw design, faster, narrower, more accurate version of the best-selling Viper S400 crossbow. The new Viper 430 shoots 30 feet per second faster at 430 and measures almost an inch narrower at a sleek 6.5. TenPoint, 6.5 is their new width, right? All these crossbows that we've looked at, this is the third one, all 6.5 inches wide, cocked. Axle to axle. I know. The old ones were measured that way too, and this is almost an inch narrower than that. So even this model is becoming narrower. They're all getting into that narrow design. And we'll see how that holds up. We'll see how that works as far as us as crossbow hunters are concerned. 30 feet per second faster though. They're taking this model, the Viper, that used to shoot 400, now it's shooting 430. They're raising the overall standard of their crossbow line. They're lifting it all up at the same time, right? Not just releasing new models that are really fast, reinventing their older catalog and making it faster. This will trickle down, right? We're going to see this in other companies. It's going to require other companies to follow suit. This is why I like this stuff. If TenPoint didn't do this, other companies wouldn't feel any pressure to improve. What kind of world is that? You want to live in that kind of world where the market doesn't challenge other companies to do a better job? That's not the world that I grew up in. It's not the world I want to live in. I want all the companies to be competing. If they want my dollars, they got to show me why it's a better bang for my buck. I got to get faster, quieter, narrower, shorter, smaller, better scope. And you got to do better than the other guy, and you got to do it cheaper than the other guy. That's beautiful. Now, these guys, maybe not doing it cheaper, but they're at least pushing the market forward. This one we can see is forward draw, right? Your traditional style. The riser is out front, and ready to go. New scope struts, we talked about that, the erector sets on the sides of the crossbow there to hold the scope. One of the reasons that they're going to want these scope struts, regardless of whether there was a problem with the scope struts, and and I don't know, but I suspect that cantilever design sticking way out there, it's kind of asking for it, right? Asking for that vibration to work on those scope rails as they stick out over the crossbow like this. We're looking at new scopes in the last season or two, aren't we? The Burris Oracle X that I like, the Garmin Zero X1i. That's a really nice looking scope, very similar to the Burris, has more little features built in. The ATN scope, I think that has like thermal in it and stuff like that. There's scopes now that record video. And if you've got all these different options, these different things built into your scopes, they tend to get a little bit heavier, don't they, right? It's adding ounces at least. The Burris Oracle X weighs 30 ounces, I can tell you that. It's almost 2 pounds. That's a lot of weight to put on those rails. So a beefed up rail for crossbows like this is a good idea. Now this one, when I look down here, this one doesn't come with the Burris Oracle X option. Doesn't mean you can't put one on it, right? It comes with their standard speed scope, the vintage scope. And that was a joke in the last video. The same conversation applies to that. It's a market. By releasing scopes like that, if those scopes become popular, they become cheaper and more companies make them, and it's more competition in the market and the prices come down and the quality improves. That's how it's supposed to work, right? So it's good that these scopes are on the market now. It's good that I'm talking about them. It's good that many of you are buying those scopes and asking me questions all the time because it's moving crossbow hunting forward. It will have a ripple effect across crossbow hunting long term. 5-10 years from now, even more options. An affordable crossbow that you can buy with a range finding scope at Walmart. That's where this goes, right? Not today, but eventually. And that's pretty cool. That's the only way to get there. We don't even have that option on this scope. Nonetheless, it does have those scope rail improvements, new scope struts. If we look right there, look at that, scope struts right there. These mounts I learned are not retrofittable. You can't put those mounts on your last year's model. If you have one of those, you can't add them on. It almost seems like you could because it's got the little Allen screws right here. You should be able to take out whatever ones are in there, stick this on, and then screw this one fast with new screws or something. It would seem like they would have made it that way, but they did not from what I am told. So it does not look like we can add this erector set to the previous models if you wanted to upgrade your scope or do something like that. 33 inches long, very similar to the 450 we just looked at, 430 feet per second. We've got a video. Their videos are awesome. Watch their videos if you're interested in these crossbows. This has the Rangemaster 100 scope. It doesn't have the more expensive scope, but again, they're scaling down this crossbow to make it more affordable. So it doesn't have that elite scope, that the speed ring scope that they have, which by all accounts is an awesome speed scope. This one has a scaled down, cheaper version of that. It does have the AccuSlide, by all accounts, great stuff. Vectra Camo or Moss Green, okay? If you like the Camo, you got the Camo option. If you like the Moss Green, you got the Moss Green option. Their Camo's got a lot of white in it. I'm not a big fan of the use of white or really, really light colors in my Camo. I would rather have like a beige, green, and black. A breakup is what you need. But when you got this, a lot of white, like the handle's all white, the stock has a lot of white in it, the limbs have a lot of white. White reflects all colors. So one of the things you see is it reflects a lot of blue, right? There's blue in the air at the last light. This is just off the top of my head. If it's reflecting all colors, that blue is reflecting, that's something deer can see. I think that if you're sitting in a tree stand with a lot of white on your crossbow, that's a bad thing. That's just me, okay? That's a theory of mine. By doing videos and stuff, I learned a lot about light and stuff like that. Lots of optiones there. I'm gonna click, anywhere we click, it's gonna take us to their page. That's awesome. Now here's our crossbow. This one we see forward draw design. Oh, giving us the video again. We'll skip out of that. But we do have a dude hunting with this crossbow, and he likes the green version of it. That is the green version, which looks pretty good, actually. Let's watch a little bit of that. Now it goes to Camo.
More accurate version of the best-selling Viper S400. Meet the Viper 430.
A lot of white on here.
Registering 430 feet per second and measuring a sleek 6.5 inches
Okay, 6.5 inches narrow. Again, we're talking axle to axle.
narrow. The supercharged Viper 430 delivers 100-yard knock-breaking accuracy.
I mentioned how TenPoint seems to have these smaller cams. One thing about TenPoint, though, too, is they have beefed up bushings, right? All these crossbows have massive bushings on their cams, which is cool. That does give me a lot more confidence that that crossbow is going to hold together long term. There's a lot of serving on this cable by the looks of things, so there's not a lot of room to adjust it. You can't tighten and loosen that cable very much. because it's under that serving. So there isn't a lot of room for adjustment there. Not that you want a lot of room for adjustment necessarily, but when you go to put new strings on it, if you had a press and you were going to work on this thing, that'd be something I'd be wondering about. With the Scorpyd, I got lots of room to adjust that stuff, right? So I was able to play with the timing, fix the timing this summer when I was having issues with it, and got it right back to factory spec, got it so it shoots like beautiful, right? It's shooting perfect right now. I don't want to change anything. You know what I mean? Like right now it's shooting perfect. When it's not shooting perfect, that gets a little frustrating. The other thing we see here is what it looks like uncocked. That's pretty cool, okay? This is the width uncocked. So after you fire this in a blind, right here, the distance from here to the other cam off camera here is what we're really concerned about for the width of this crossbow. And they rarely even show us pictures of what these things look like uncocked. I don't know why they're so afraid to show us those pictures, but this is pretty cool. As soon as I hit play, it's going to cut away from this shot too, right? They're not even going to show us this angle of the crossbow again. This is that new style rail that TenPoint's going to. It has like little lips. The cock vane rides down the center flight groove down the middle, and your string, of course, rides on top of these. But that improves, according to them, string life, serving life, reduces serving wear because there isn't as much contact with the crossbow. Here's your arrow loaded. Got a field point shooting at a target way down there. The cock vane is going to be down in that flight groove. I'm going to play the playback speed at 0.25, see what happens. Are you ready?
Delivers 100 yards.
Here it goes. Boom. So we really don't get to see much there. It is not as interesting to watch videos that way. Well, it's funny. I'm not going to see a super slow-mo on that. Reduces string to barrel contact by 50% to provide longest string life in the industry, surpassing blah, blah, blah. The string is only having contact with those little lips that stick up. Okay, so there's like 4 lips that stick up, and that reduces string wear. But to me, that just means it's going to wear in 4 places. It's going to wear here and here instead of all of this, but it's still going to wear out. I don't know. By spreading that friction over a wider area, you're getting less pounds per square inch on that serving. So it seems to me this increases the pounds per square inch. It puts all of the wear just on those 4 little contact points. Almost seems like it would be less good. We'll see, right? This is part of that market approach. This is part of that market idea. We put these crossbows out there. You and I get to use them, whoever gets to use them, and we report back and we see which one is better. And we'll find out over time. Bow hanger, the bow hanger. You can't put your foot in this stirrup. And it was brought up to me, and this is what I love about doing these videos, the comments from you, Friends of Bunjie, who share information with me, and that goes a long way. I learn more about these crossbows, not just by looking at them, but by talking to you about them, and then you report back to me. We learn stuff. TenPoint, I am told, does not want to have a stirrup on their crossbows because you can't rope cock them. And they're concerned that if they made the stirrup big enough for you to put your foot in it, that you'd take the next logical step of trying to get a rope cocker on there or cock it by hand or something like that, and they don't want these cocked that way. It comes with a very expensive AccuSlide cocking system, so I'm not sure why they think anybody would want to trade up that AccuSlide cocking system for a rope cocker. One of the reasons I would buy a TenPoint is for the advantage of the AccuSlide cocking system. I'm not a big fan of cranks, as you know, but this is a good crank. If you got a crank one, this is a good one to crank, right? If you're back here cranking it, it's going to roll around on you a little bit. It's nice to have something to stabilize it. So they don't want that. That's the bow hanger. It's really just intended to hang the bow in your tree stand, I guess. It also, actually with a broadhead on here, it's well behind that stirrup. I bet it sticks out far enough to where that bow hanger gives us clearance so I can set the crossbow down on the stirrup in the blind. That's what I always do. I set it down, lean it on the stirrup. It leans up against me. When I'm ready, I lift it up and shoot. So the end of that stirrup has to protect the broadhead so the arrow's not lifting up, it's not getting dirt on it or whatever else. It does look like all the other 10-point crossbows, except this scope they don't even put camo on. That's your downgraded scope that keeps the price down on this crossbow apparently. But man, it's a nice looking crossbow. Commented on this before. I don't know why they don't just extend these things out to like here. Like bring it out to here so I can put my hand out here if I want to. Might not be an issue at all, right? I might be just bringing up something that's not relevant, but I like to have more options for where my hand goes. I would never put my hand here. Okay, my left hand will never go here. Does anybody hold a crossbow like this? Like anybody at all? So why is there even a grip there? I don't know. Take this one off and put it up here. Like have it loop up here so I have an option clear out here if I want to. I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, I would like to have my hand out front. No uncocked pictures. See, the 6.5 inches is from here to here, not here to here, and certainly not uncocked. So the 6.5 inches actually doesn't even show us how wide the limbs are. The limbs are wider than the axle to axle. 174 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. What we're seeing here with crossbows, there's so much energy in this thing. That's not the consideration anymore. I love the speed. Like, I want my arrow to get there as soon as possible. There's benefits to that across the board. But the energy, this is so much energy. What do I do? You got to buy new targets, and you're not going to find your arrow after you shoot a deer. And it's just, you can get to the point where you got too much energy. Again, love the speed, right? I guess we need bigger broadheads. That's what we should be using with these crossbows. Something to eat up that energy on impact so that we don't have as much energy left over after it goes through the deer, because that's wasted energy. The speed is not wasted. Does that make sense? I want the arrow to get there as soon as possible. We do have the 2-stage trigger. Not a big fan of those. A couple of options on buying it. You got the moss green, that's the cheap one, and then the Vectra is the more expensive one. So really that's the difference in the cost. You're paying more for the camo. That looks to be the moss green one. I would have no problem with the moss green one. I think that's awesome. We're gonna scroll along down here with the specs real quick, see if there's anything interesting here. Maybe it'll tell us more about the arrow weight, that sort of thing. Power stroke, 13 inches, very similar to the other crossbows. The weight without accessories is 7.5 pounds, but with the AccuSlide. That's without the scope. You put the Burris Oracle X on there, we're almost 2 pounds heavier at 9.5 pounds. I don't personally think 9.5 pounds is too heavy for a crossbow. This includes the AccuSlide system. It's built in. You really can't separate that from the weight of the crossbow. When we hear about the weight of the Excaliburs, for example, they're still using cranks that are add-ons, right? So that adds weight that you're carrying with you, but it's not part of the crossbow. You're comparing apples to oranges. What's the crossbow weigh with the cocking system? If you want to compare it to this one, 7.5 pounds with the AccuSlide. I don't think that's too heavy. The speed, now here we got 2 options for arrows. They did that again here, which is great news. This one's only going to shoot 410 to get that 174 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. It implies here that you can shoot 430 feet per second and get 174 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. We see by looking at the specs that you cannot do that. With the 430 feet per second, you're only getting 164 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. Still very, very fast, still lots of energy, more than I am able to generate with any of my crossbows. Again, raising the bar of crossbows across the board. It's challenging the other manufacturers, saying, hey, look what we can do. And that is what we're here for, right? That's what moves crossbow hunting forward. 410 feet per second, still faster than I'm able to do, even with the Deathstalker 420, which is advertised at 420 feet per second. I don't believe I've ever chronoed that at 410 feet per second. I haven't shot the lightest arrow possible out of that thing either, but 410 feet per second is beyond what I have shot, and I certainly have not achieved 174 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. Still a great crossbow. You know, for now, it's still in the mix. It's still kind of modern, I guess. We'll see what the other manufacturers do, but we're kind of seeing the Deathstalker 420 at the bottom end of the modern era, right? That's where we're going. And this is moving the modern era, the modern speeds of crossbows up. 250-pound draw weight. Some of the models, I think the Flatline 460 and the Stealth 450, I think those 2 crossbows actually have the beefed up 505 limbs, the more impressive, the bigger limbs off of the Nitro 505, the same limbs. They have the same draw weight. They have maybe a different power stroke or something. They're set up differently. So they don't end up with the same energy out of those crossbows, but they nonetheless have the same limbs. This one we're seeing, I think, and I don't know this, but I think this one actually comes with a different limb setup. It doesn't come with the 505 limbs, nor does it have the 300-pound draw weight that the other models have. This one has a 250-pound draw weight. So it's not going to shoot as fast, not as much tension on the limbs. Doesn't need the beefed up limbs, perhaps. TenPoint's thinking about that and able to offer a cheaper crossbow. Still a lot of money for this crossbow. This is like a Scorpyd price, isn't it? You can pay that much for a new Scorpyd, so it's not the most expensive one, but we're not going to buy this at Walmart either. One of the podcasts I listened to suggested that $1,600, right? Almost this price range is going to become the new standard for crossbows. Inflation, prices, everything going up. Everything. I think what we're seeing here, this is kind of the entry-level TenPoint now, right? Entry-level speed, 430 feet per second, not 400 feet per second, 430 feet per second. Faster crossbow, $150 more. It's raising the price of crossbows too. So there's good and bad with all this stuff. Great looking crossbow. We'll see what other new models are coming out. Make sure you subscribe to Death by Bunjie so we can check them out together. Leave me comments. Let's talk about this. And until next time, all hail Bunjie.